From CITI program, I'm Darren Gaddis, and this is the best of On Campus. Today, I reconnected with Melinda Latas, the Assistant Vice Chancellor and Chief Compliance Officer for the California State University System. Melinda was previously a guest on the On Campus episode, What is the Clery Act? As a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not intended to provide legal advice or guidance. You should consult with your organization's attorneys if you have questions or concerns about relevant laws and regulations discussed in this podcast. Additionally, the views expressed in this podcast are solely those of the guest and do not represent the views of their employer. Hi, Melinda. It's great to be speaking with you again today.
Hi, Darren. It's so good to see you again.
It's been a moment since we have last spoken, and for some of our newer listeners out there, what is your professional and educational background?
I learned about a career in higher education as an undergrad at Texas A&M University. From there, I studied higher education administration at The Ohio State University and later earned a second master's degree at The Ohio State University in legal studies. Most recently, I obtained a certified compliance and ethics officer certification from the Society of Corporate Compliance and Ethics. All of these tools have helped me in my career in higher education. I started out working in the residence halls at 3 different private liberal arts colleges over 5 years. My role there was helping college students in the residential environment to learn how to make responsible decisions and to take accountability for the decisions that they made. From there, I started working in the compliance field in Clery Act compliance and managed Clery Act compliance for 4 years at The Ohio State University. And most recently, I have been overseeing Clery and campus safety compliance from the Chancellor's office for the past 3 years here at the California State University. I also am excited to say that I was recently promoted to Assistant Vice Chancellor and Chief Compliance Officer for the system. So I'm taking those skills that I learned in the Clery Act compliance space and applying them to manage policy, training, systems accountability for the broader compliance program here at California State University.
Congratulations on your well-deserved promotion. As we think about the Clery Act, what are some things that we should know?
Yeah, the Clery Act is a consumer protection statute. So it is all about helping individuals to be empowered with information that will let them make the most informed decisions about their safety that they can. Clery Act talks about information that we obtain from individuals like campus security authorities, which we talk about in this podcast, and also from law enforcement agencies. That information that we obtain is then packaged up into disclosures for our community. Most notably, this is the annual security report, which is published every year on or before October 1st. But it also includes our daily crime log and timely warning notices and emergency notifications, which let communities know about serious and continuing threats to their safety.
What are some hot topics currently on your campuses related to Clery Act compliance?
I'm so proud of my campuses here in the Cal State system. They've done great work this year around compliance controls for campus security authorities. In the episode, Darren, you and I talked about CSA identification and training, and many of my campuses now are working with their campus partners in human resources and in learning and development to integrate their compliance controls around CSA identification into systems and workflows so that they're process-based and repeatable. Tools like learning management systems and recruiting software can be leveraged to make this work easier and more reliable. Additionally, my campuses are continuing to dig into identifying CSAs in groups beyond the traditional employee population. This would be groups such as volunteers, affiliates from our auxiliary entities who have significant responsibility for student and campus activities and thus meet the definition of a campus security authority. Training and communicating with these folks requires different processes, but my campuses are finding creative solutions, and through their efforts, they're making our campuses safer places to work and learn.
Belinda, as always, it's a pleasure to catch up with you today, and I hope our listeners enjoyed this episode of The Best of On Campus featuring What is the Clery Act?
Thank you, Darren.
Thanks for listening to this episode. Keep listening to hear Darren's original interview with Melinda on the topic of the Clery Act. Subscribe to CITI on Campus wherever you get your podcasts. And be on the lookout for Season 2 of On Campus kicking off in early 2024 with new host Ed Butch. And now back to Darren and Melinda's original interview on what is the Clery Act.
Hi, Melinda. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Darren. Thanks for having me.
What is the Clery Act?
The Clery Act is a federal statute that is tied to a higher education institution's eligibility to participate in Title IV federal student aid programs. So it's one of the ways that the government gives us guidance about how it wants us to use the money they provide. And in this case, the goal is to ensure that we are keeping consumers safe. So the Clery Act requires institutions to collect, classify, and count reports of crime. And then it requires us to make disclosures about those crimes we've collected to the community. The Clery Act is a complex legal requirement, and the stakes of noncompliance can be really high. But I feel, and I'm in this work because I know it's extremely valuable. It gives current and prospective students and current and prospective employees, and really other invested stakeholders in the community, important information that they can use to help make informed decisions to keep themselves and their loved ones safe. So it's a really important law and something I'm privileged to be a part of here in California at the CSU.
What is a CSA according to the Department of Education?
So in the law and the regulation, there is an explicit requirement that says an institution has to include reports made to campus security authorities alongside reports made to police in those required disclosures that I mentioned above. So because there's this explicit requirement that we report crimes that are reported to these individuals, there's then an implicit requirement that those CSAs have to share crimes that they're made aware of through the reporting structure the institution established. So often this might be directing CSAs to share the information with police themselves as a third party. Other times it could be an online reporting forum that a CSA is directed to use. But once those reports are shared by the CSA, then the university can use them to populate its daily crime log, its timely warning notices, and put them in the annual statistics at the end of the year in the annual security report. There's also an explicit requirement in guidance that the institution has to proactively identify the persons who meet this definition of a campus security authority. So they're not just supposed to magically know that they have these obligations. We have to figure out who they are and communicate in some fashion to them. So there's, again, kind of an implicit requirement that we have to provide training to these persons. It's not stated in the law, but there is language in audits that says the Department of Education feels the law leads directly to this requirement. So in the field, the thought leaders and subject matter experts at this point are recommending that institutions of higher education that participate in these federal student aid programs need to train their CSAs. We don't really have any structure in the law or in guidance that tells us what must be included in the training or what the format must be or how often training must be provided. But if a campus is audited under these requirements, they will likely be asked to provide both their CSA list and dates that those CSAs were last trained. We saw that in one of the more recent audits. So it's important to, engage in good quality training and also to keep records of it.
Who is a CSA and what is their role on campus?
So, Campus Security Authority is a term that's defined in the regulation, and it has four parts. The first part is a campus security authority includes the campus police department or a campus security department in lieu of a police department at the institution, if they have one. Not all institutions of higher education do, but if they have one, those individuals are campus security authorities. Additionally, the second part of the definition includes any individual who has responsibility for campus security, but is not part of the police or campus security department. So this could be someone who controls and monitors access to an entrance of university property, like a parking facility or a library or a rec facility where students go to work out after classes, those types of things. So think about that security function, whether it's having to do with a space or some other security function like providing services to walk a student from point A to point B after dark, all of those types of things. The third part of the definition is any individual or organization that the campus indicates is a person to whom their community should report crimes. A great example of this would be a Title IX coordinator because we tell students to report incidents of sexual violence to the Title IX coordinator. It could be an employer labor relations manager in human resources that we direct employees to share concerns or grievances with. A resident assistant or RA in a residential environment. We definitely tell students to report to their RA if they have a concern or don't feel safe. So those persons fall under this part of the definition. And then finally, there's a really broad fourth bucket in the definition. And it says any official of the institution who has significant responsibility for student and campus activities. And they do give some examples in this definition. They say it includes student housing, student discipline, campus judicial proceedings. So a lot of folks in student affairs. But we also see here individuals who are high in the org chart in almost any office on campus because they have that significant responsibility as decision makers for activities of the institution. So one of the things that the Department of Ed will sometimes say is, if you find out in the front page of the newspaper that employee A knew about said crime and did not report it, would it look bad? And if the answer to that is yes, you could maybe have a presumption that that person is probably a campus security authority because common sense would say this person can give you assistance in helping you find a solution or helping you get connected with the right people on campus if you shared with them some information about a crime. There are some exceptions, even if someone has significant responsibility for student and campus activities, but they're a pastor counselor, like clergy, or a professional counselor, they're actually exempt from this requirement. All these criteria, really, as you can see, are intended to capture persons that students and employees might be likely to disclose crimes to if they chose not to disclose them to the police. So CSA's role is merely to pass along the information they receive in a timely manner through whatever reporting structure is established by the institution. The CSA doesn't have to verify its accuracy, and under Clery, they actually also don't have to take any action to mitigate the effects or to prevent it from reoccurring. They simply have to report that information so that we can share it.
What is one thing students should know about CSAs?
I think an important thing for students to know about CSAs is that a campus security authority actually has the prerogative by law to withhold personally identifiable information for the reporting party if the reporting party asks them to. So, for example, if you said, I want to report this crime, but I'd rather you didn't share my name, the CSA has the prerogative to honor that request when they pass the information on. So, of all of the different federal laws, state laws, and institutional policies that establish reporting obligations for campus administrators, I think the CSA reporting obligation is actually the least stressful because many individuals do not have that prerogative of maintaining the privacy if they're asked to. Someone may wear both the CSA hat and another mandated reporter hat because of state law or institutional policy. And if they do, of course, they might have to share the name because of those requirements. But if their only designation is a campus security authority under Clery, Clery allows them that discretion. So for any students listening to this, make sure if you want them to keep the information private, you voice that, ask that, because they would be able to if they don't wear a different hat.
From your experience, what is one of the most important things CSAs should be aware of?
I think one of the trickiest items for CSAs to remember, and that's one of the most important ones to really focus on and hit home and give examples about, is the fact that reports can come in from third parties. And if a report comes from a third party, the same analysis and the same reporting obligations apply for the CSA. So I'll give you an example. An intentional conversation, phone call, email, report form submission is clearly a report. But other items that are disclosures in public forums, such as a statement made on a Twitter feed or Facebook feed, those are not reports to a CSA. But, and here's the caveat, if a third party, such as a university strategic communications individual, a student life colleague, an RA, sees it and sends a screenshot to a colleague who is a campus security authority on campus to enable that colleague to do outreach and provide support, that third party has now reported the matter to the CSA recipient. This happens a lot and happened a lot when I was on campus during the height of the Me Too movement. Many students or staff would make statements in public forums in writing or verbally that would not qualify as reports, but concerned officials on campus who wanted to be able to support that person and find out if there was, anything that they needed during their time here would often reach out based on someone sharing the information with them. So you have to remember that third-party report is still a report. It does not have to come directly from the affected party. And there are so many reasons that this type of coordinated response on a campus is helpful. And I'm in no way saying that university personnel shouldn't share these things that they see with their colleagues if they believe that enables them to better serve the needs of their communities. But it is really important for compliance professionals to train their CSAs to recognize that these are still reports if they come in from a third party, and to understand that they then have the obligation to share it with the office who's responsible for making the timely warning analysis and responsible for the daily crime log, which is typically university police.
What else do we need to know?
I think just want to reiterate that CSAs have an incredibly important role in Clery compliance and thus in helping to keep students safe, because their knowledge of the safety threats and their appropriate handling of those reports is what allows the university to prepare useful information for its community. Similarly, identifying CSAs and communicating effectively with them about their responsibilities is one of the most important functions that a Clery compliance professional must perform. So this piece, critical piece to allowing the law to work in the way that it's intended to work to keep people safe.
Melinda, as always, it's a pleasure to catch up with you today, and I hope our listeners enjoyed this episode of The Best of On Campus featuring What is the Clery Act?
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Be sure to follow, like, and subscribe to On Campus with CITI program to stay in the know. If you enjoyed this podcast, you may also be interested in other podcasts, including On Research and On Tech Ethics. I invite you to review our content offerings regularly, as we are continually adding new courses, subscriptions, and webinars that may be of interest to you, like CITI Program's Clery Act training course. All of our content is available to you anytime through organizational and individual subscriptions. Please visit CITI Program's website to learn more about all of our offerings at citiprogram.org.